Hey, how's it going? And welcome back to, I think this is our day two. And so, first of all, we're going to check up on assignment, homework assignment. And so, day one, we were talking about what's your job, Andy, and what is your job, Brenda. And of course, your job, Andy, was to nurture and protect. And Brenda, your job is to nurture and respect. And so, this is the job that you're supposed to do till your last breath. And so today we're going to be not talking about what your job is as much as Andy, what is it that Brenda needs from you? And Brenda, what is it that Andy needs from you? And for that, I go back to, I think it was 2 years ago. Well, back in 1988, 89, I was writing a paper for graduate school. And my professor, Dr. James Hurley, strongly encouraged me to turn it into a book. And I really didn't really want to turn it into a book, but he said that he, again, strongly insisted, and he said, I'll help you do it. And so I did. Unfortunately, it took me about 20 years or so, because I finally finished it 2 years ago. So from 89 to 2024, I'm not going to do the math. So you do that. So anyway, I sent him a copy of the manuscript PDF form, and then I called him to make sure that he got it, and he said yes, he got it. And he said, "Have you checked out John Gottman?" And I've never heard of the guy. And he said, it would be a good idea for you to check it out because they've incorporated John Gottman's work into the graduate program at the graduate school, which is the Reformed Theological Seminary in Jackson, Mississippi. Excellent program, by the way. And so I went ahead and I Googled him, and I got his book, this one, the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And it's fascinating because Gottman et al., E-T-A-L, what they did is that this is what we call in our profession evidence-based. So this is not theoretical. He studied thousands of couples, wide range of couples, for 10 consecutive years, and observed them in what he called the Love Lab. And so the data that came out of this, not only was it monumental, but it was reliable and valid and pretty strong. And so out of that, he came up with 7 principles of healthy couples, couples that lasted for a long time. So my bride and I went through this. And then here, they referred to one particular book, which is this one. Now I know it looks pretty cheesy. It looks like something that you would get out of like the 1970s or whatever. The Man's Guide to Women, also by Gottman and Gottman's wife, Julie. And it is specifically written for men. It even has cartoons in it and whatever. And so I read this, and I'm telling you, I wish, had I had this when I was 20, 21, 22, dating or whatever, my life would have been remarkably different. I would not have hurt as many people as I have. And so, again, evidence-based. But from this, what they did is that they crunched all the data, and based on this, Andy, according to this, Brenda needs just one thing from you, and one thing only. And Brenda, according to John, Andy needs 2 things from you and 2 things only. And so, ever since as I was reading this along with my bride, I'm reading this stuff. I'm going like, now we have been married for about 38 years by then, 38, 39 years, and I'm like, is this true? And she's like, yeah, you didn't know this? And I'm like, I've been doing counts for 37 years, and I had no idea. And so I'm going to share this with you. Oh, and incidentally, the book that I was talking about, that dedicated to Dr. Hurley, it's called Ring Around the Collar, the truth behind the pastoral adultery. In other words, we examined why pastors commit adultery. And it is on Amazon. And so if you want to look it up, you have to look up, because I've tried, it's like Ring Around the Collar, Reverend William R. Cruz, and then you'll be able to get it. But it's more of an academic, and the target audience is more like churches and pastors, to prevent it from happening, church leaders to prevent it from happening, and church leaders as to find out, okay, if it happened, what can we do about it, and for counselors, if you're treating pastors that committed adultery, what to do about it. But anyway, going back to this, so for that, hold on, I got my notes right here. If you're going to be doing counseling with Bill Cruz, then you have to have something to write with. Okay, so hopefully you do. And so, Andy, I'm going to tell you the one thing that Brenda needs from you the most. Now, mind you, I've asked, ever since I read this 2 years ago, I've asked all my female patients, who come in for a couple counseling, is this true? And every single one of them has said, yeah, that's it. And so Andy, if you just focus on this and this thing only, gravy, things are going to be great. And so, so Andy, I'm going to tell you the one thing, according to John, the one thing that Brenda needs from you. I'm going to define it the way that he defines it. I'm going to give you some adjectives for you to, or synonyms, sorry. So synonyms for you to understand what it means. And then I'm going to explain why. Okay? And so, and I'm going to be watching you, Brenda, to see how you react to this. Okay? So, here it is. And by the way, you can totally disagree with John. But of course, John has reams of data to say, yeah, you're wrong. Okay? So, for what it's worth, this is what John said. Okay, ready? All right, Andy. The one thing that Brenda needs from you the most is for you to be trustworthy. And I can see you, Brenda, kind of going, yeah. So let me tell you what he described that as. He said trustworthy means that you demonstrate trust. You are who you say you are. You do what you say you're going to do. When you show up as yourself. Meaning, Andy, you're a man of integrity. You're a man of your word. You are truthful. You're honest. You're dependable. You have, Brenda's back. You are sometimes even predictable. What you say you're going to do, you're going to do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, whoever it is you're meeting can set their watches, on you arriving. So all of those things, pretty much describe what trustworthiness means. Now, why is that important? And this is, and by the way, in the cheesy, I could refer to the Cheesy Red Book. I'm covering chapters 1 and 2. According to John, Brenda has been struggling with, and probably for as long as she can remember, has been struggling with two things inside of her. One of them is fear, and the other one is insecurity. And the way that he described it, and some of them like on a daily basis. And the way he described it is, well, Andy, you're here to my right and Brenda here to my left. He said, there's a direct inverse correlation between your level of trustworthiness, Andy, and her level of fear and insecurity. Which means that the more trustworthy you are, the less fearful and insecure she is. The less trustworthy you are, the more fearful and insecure she is. Because again, there is that connection, that correlation. Now, when I read that, I'm like, wow. And I was thinking, if if there's one thing in common with most, if not all, of the arguments that I have with my bride, uh, it has to do with my trustworthiness. You know, she thought I was going to do something and I didn't, or I said I was going to do something that I didn't. And so it boils down to how trustworthy am I? And so again, if I'm very trustworthy, her fear and security, no, decreases. If I'm not very trustworthy, her fear and insecurity increase. So does that make sense, Brenda? Is that true? Yeah, yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay, so, and this is where it gets difficult, uh, because um, I remember reading the book, and to this day, I don't quite like it, but he's got the data to support it. Um, John Gottman said, basically speaking to me, Bill or Andy, even though Brenda or my bride have things that they need to change about themselves, by and large, by a large margin, whether a marriage makes it or not for a long time depends on how trustworthy you and I are. So if we focus on being trustworthy all the time, things are just going to fall into place. Now, I did want to mention the fact that part of that being trustworthy means really sharing what's on your mind. If she asks you a question, for you to answer the question and not ignore her. Because one of the things that I've noticed particularly when it comes to women in my clinical experience, is that in the absence of information, women tend to think the worst. For example, if you're going to leave the office at 6 o'clock and be home, let's say about 6:30, and 6:30, 6:35, 6:40 hits, we may have stopped at a supermarket to buy some things or whatever. Maybe we got caught in traffic, or so maybe it's a mundane reason. But you ask Brenda, and Brenda will tell you most likely is she's thinking, you got involved in road rage, or you ran out of gas, or you're in some ditch somewhere, or you're dead, you got involved in an accident or whatever. Which is why it's important for you to, if you are supposed to be home at 6:30 and you're not, and you know that you're stuck in traffic or whatever, call and let him know, hey, by the way, I'm stuck in traffic. According to my GPS, it's going to be a later day. Later time. The more information that you give her, the more safe and secure she will feel, because she needs you to be trustworthy. And even according to John, and if there are children involved, even more, because she's thinking of herself and she's thinking of the lives of the kids. And so, Andy, if you just focus on being trustworthy, being honest, and all of those synonyms that I gave you, things are going to fall into place, and you're going to have a very healthy relationship with Brenda. And so usually around this time, we have either the guy or the girl says, oh yeah, well, the guy was like, well, what about her? Or her, it's like, yeah, well, according to John and his research, Brenda, Andy needs two things from you, and only two things. And so I'm going to describe what those two things are. And since this is going to be YouTube and it's going to be seen by kids, we're going to be kind of dressing up a little bit, if you understand what I mean. And so the two things that, according to his research, are you writing this down? Okay, good. Okay, number one, and we're going to call it more dancing. And I'm going to explain why. And number two, less fights, or less arguments when it comes in the home. Okay. So first of all, the dancing part. One of the things that I've noticed clinically and deviating from Gottman, is the fact that, uh, for the most part, generally speaking, in order for you, Brenda, to want to dance, you want to feel secure first. If you feel secure, then you'll be more open to dance. What's interesting is that Andy needs to dance in order to feel secure. So that's how the whole issue of security kind of feeds into each other. So again, um, Brenda needs to feel secure in order to dance. Andy needs to dance in order to feel secure. And so the common denominator here, the secret sauce here, is security, feeling safe and secure. Because if Andy has not danced for a while, he's going to feel very insecure about the relationship. I wonder if things are going well or whatever. And so, um, going back to Gottman, as Gottman explained, Andy connects with you, Brenda, through the dancing. I mean, that's how he makes that connection, that bonding connection. Um, and number two, when it comes to less fights, he described that when Andy, when the two of you are upset and you're fighting and arguing or whatever, Andy gets into what John called a warrior mode. And the warrior mode means that he gets his adrenaline flowing, and he wants to slay the dragon, whatever the dragon may be. He just wants to take the sword out, but of course he understands that if he does that, he's going to end up wearing orange, which is not going to be a good idea. And so what he does is, how does he deal with that anger? How does he deal with that, the adrenaline flowing through his body? Well, in one of two ways, and that is he either internalizes it and shuts down, or he gets out of Dodge. Now, if he internalizes it and shuts down, and goes within itself, goes into that bear cave of his, and it quiets and doesn't communicate with Brenda, what is Brenda going to think? She's going to think the worst. She's going to think that, you're thinking of leaving her, you're going to divorce her, you're going to separate, you're going to find somebody else, or whatever. And so going into your, stonewalling, or going into that cave, is going to decrease his trustworthiness and increase her fear and insecurity. Second of all, the leaving town. I just need to get out. And you just get out. Again, when you do that, this is what happens. Because, in Brenda's mind, what if you never come back? What if something happens? And true story, when my bride and I were living in our first home, there was a couple that lived across the street from us, a young couple in their 20s. And once in a while, they would argue, and you would know because you could hear the yelling from across the street. And I remember one particular night where there was a lot of yelling, and the young man came out, and he just yelled, and she came out and yelled at him. And they just yelled back and forth. He got into his pickup truck and just drove away. And she went into the house and slammed the door. Well, what happened is that he went all the way to the top of the street, turned left, and then he headed north on that one particular road, and he hit this bump, railroad track or whatever, and he turned over his truck and he died. So the next thing that happened, of course, the wife is probably thinking, I don't know, probably still angry with him, probably cussing his name out or whatever. Well, then she hears this, opens the door, there's a police officer to inform her of what happened. And so, what an ending. Sad, where the last words that they exchanged with each other, were angry words. And she will never have a chance to take it back, and neither will he. And the kids, now the kids are immediately, orphaned, from the father. And so, what Andy needs from you, Brenda, again, is more dancing in order, for him to feel secure in his relationship, and less arguments and less fights. But here's the beauty. And again, don't take it out of me because this is John. You prove yourself trustworthy, Andy, there's going to be less fear, less insecurity. And chances are Brenda's going to be more willing to dance and have less arguments. Now, you prove yourself untrustworthy, and now Brenda's going to be feeling more insecure, more fearful, and what she's going to do is she will argue with you, and she will get angry with you, and she will nag you. Why? Because of fear and insecurity. And I've had guys, and they have a guy who is like, can you please make her stop? And I'm like, no, you don't want her to stop. Because the fact that Brenda is nagging you and getting on your case for you to really be more trustworthy means that in her mind, she still thinks that you have the potential of being trustworthy. What you don't want is for her to, and it's happened and I've seen it in sessions, is where they, and this is fascinating. According to John, when Brenda and women feel fear and insecurity, John and his associates tracked it as pain. Not heart pain or mental pain, whatever, but physical pain. The woman either felt it here or felt it here or both places. And so when they would say it hurts, we think, yeah, it hurts here. No, it literally hurts here. And every single time that they feel this fear and insecurity from your untrustworthiness, it hurts. And it gets to the point, where they say things like, I can't stand the pain. And again, Andy, you and I think it's an emotional kind of pain, whatever. No. It's a physical pain. And so I've seen women who have had so much pain that both of them described it the same way. Both of them said, I switched it off. And I went, what do you mean you switched it off? And it's like, I feel nothing. It's as if they were CPR instructors and their spouses had a heart attack, they would do nothing. They would just watch it happen. They had zero emotion attached to that person. And I tell the guys, you don't want that. The fact that she is riding you and insisting means that she thinks you can do better. So going back to that phrase that John had said, the one that I didn't like, if you want things to be cool and a long-lasting, healthy relationship between the two of you, Andy, it depends on you. And it depends on me. Every single day. Not only do our jobs of being nurturing and protective, which is really, you need to be trustworthy for that, but also fulfilling that one need that they have, and that is prove ourselves to be trustworthy, to be men of integrity, to be men of our word. That when we finally graduate to the next world, people will be able to say, if there's one thing about Andy or Bill or whatever, is you could count on him. And being trustworthy at home means you're trustworthy at work, you're trustworthy at play, you're trustworthy all over the place. So you fix that man in the mirror, you become a man who can be trusted. And I'm telling you, things, according to John Gottman and his associates, things are going to be pretty cool. So, homework assignment until next week. Andy, be trustworthy. to the best of your ability. And, well, we'll go ahead and see you next week, okay? Bye.